welcome to Hempound TV. My name is Kevin Jones, and yes, this is a bit of an unusual, well, second Hempound TV. First and foremost, if you hear dogs barking or a dog barking in the background, that is Sprocket, the inspiration for the logo for the Hempound. He is also director for treats and security, so if he woofs, he's obviously got some kind of input to bring into this video. I can't, really disregard him. Last time I did that, he wasn't very happy on the board meeting, so let's just say I've got to accept, that he might have a grumble, possibly, whether that's genuine or just someone walking past the window. So let me introduce myself properly. This is Kevin Jones. I'm the founder of the Hempound Agency and by extension the Hempound TV channel. I've been in the industry for a bit, since 2016 with a product with my wife, and then from 2018 working for a trade association who basically was compliance minded and was quite big in the industry back then. Now, I've got my own business concern now, obviously, as mentioned, and recently, by recently I mean in July this year, I launched a public interest disclosure complaint in regards to novel foods and the handling of by the FSA, or the Food Standards Agency. Now, it's been a little bit of an interesting time for us all in the industry, whether we sell products or not, and watching how novel foods has unfolded has certainly told a story or two, or shall we say rocked many people's kind of confidence or patience in the whole process, shall we say. So basically, over this time, certainly when I was working with the trade association and setting up the Hempound Agency, there's bits and pieces that I've kind of noticed. First and foremost, there's people who are asking questions, but they're kind of being dismissed. And there are people, of course, who should be asking questions, but aren't. A bit cryptic. But at the end of the day, we are where we are. And that is that the Hempound Agency has launched a public interest disclosure complaint against the FSA's handling of novel foods. And the reason for that is that we were given specific rules to follow. And the two main rules to follow was that you had to have a product on available to the public on or before 13/02/2020. Right? Now, if you had that, then you were invited to the CBD amnesty, right? And that meant that if you had a novel food application for that product that was available on that point, submitted by the 31st of March 2021, then you were allowed to stay on the shelves, right? That was the main rule. There was another one in regards to the 1 milligram rule, but we'll come back to that one on the next video. But certainly, right, when we had the first update, shall we say, of companies that were put on the FSA's public list, all of them were validated. There wasn't this awaiting evidence as we see now. It was just, I think it was about 30 odd products validated. Now we're in a scenario where we've got over 12,000 and we've barely got over 100 that are validated. But certainly at that point, the point of having 11 companies with validated products, that's when I started asking questions. And this is the one question that we're going to go through in this video, and that is, were those products available on 13/02/20, on that date or before, to the general public? Okay, right. Now, bearing in mind, this was the first qualification point for remaining on the shelves beyond this point. We have a few, shall we say. So first of all, we've got purists, right? Now, purists in themselves create synthetic CBD, which is something that we'll go into slightly a bit more in this, as well as future videos. But first and foremost, I want to bring your attention to Form 001. Alright, now forgive me, I'm going to start having to read a little bit more from here, so I've got some IXL glasses, shall we call them. So yeah, Form 001. Right, now this is for 20 milligram capsules. I believe it is the first lab report for that product. So if we have a little look at it, you will see that the microbial test was done on the 11th of the 1st, 20. Alright, and the file itself, which is when you would assume the product to be first on sale by, is dated the 12/07/21. To my understanding, by that count, that product shouldn't be listed. What it should be is off sale until it has been authorised, because it doesn't qualify for the Novel Foods amnesty. Now, I want to draw your attention to Cannabis Wealth magazine from 22/04/21. It's got Chanel McCoy, and she's quoted as saying, "I don't have any sympathy for companies who are complaining about the FSA." I'm hoping that's changed a bit since then, because it takes a lot for a person to launch a public interest disclosure against the FSA's handling for novel foods, let alone kind of pointing out that a company who said that might actually be part of the craziness. You know, might. You know, we have to go with that assumption, because ultimately they might be able to turn around and say, well, actually, Kev, here you are. But it doesn't kind of look like that at all. So, yeah. So she goes on to say, they are doing a good job. It's all about consumer safety, to bring about safe products to the consumer. Now, this is something that we will go into on another video, but obviously it's kind of leading into bits and pieces here that I just kind of feel need to be brought up on this one. So yeah, she then goes on to state, everyone, including us, was given a deadline. We knew the new legislation came in January 2019. Everybody knew. Now, I was working for a trade association then, as I mentioned earlier, right? And Novel Foods came about in 2017, right? Don't worry what anyone else says. That's when it first came about, and that was for isolated cannabinoids. It wasn't for full or broad spectrum whole plant extracts. That changed in 2020. I mean, in 2019, we knew that the FSA had accepted the EFSA's stance that all cannabinoids were novel. But we didn't know what that meant, because we as an industry were allowed to go to Brussels in March and state a case. They didn't accept that, but even then, the FSA only accepted it. No one knew, least of all them, what that actually meant until 13/02/2020, when they actually stuck their heads out of the parapet and said, right, here's the gameplay. This is how we're working. So what does she know in 2019? Because all we knew was words. I don't know, it confuses me. But again, that's another thing that we'll be touching on in Monopoly's market, because that there, as well as a few other things that I'll bring in now, kind of just paint an interesting picture, I think. So, this is where it gets interesting. We haven't had any extra help here. Interesting words. This is a level playing field. I'm not going to put my glasses down again. We are all being treated the same. We just decided that we were going, we were doing very early on, we just decided what we were doing very early on and decided to follow the legislation. Now again, what legislation existed in 2019? Okay. So that's the thing, isn't it? Because when we did get legislation in 2020, in 1302 2020, when they announced deadlines and whatnot, it was quite sketchy. If anything, we've kind of been learning on the fly, you know, the absolute requirements, because well, that's how it works when you're met with vagueness or deflection from questions. I mean, ultimately, there is a kind of confusion, certainly in my head, that when did the FSA decide that synthetic CBD products didn't need a safety assessment, because they're exactly the same as plant-derived CBD products or extracts. I haven't got a clue, but I have got a quote on that, obviously. So extra help, strange words, isn't it? Like, you know, it's, were people turning around at the point and saying, oh, you've had extra help when we're all waiting? I don't think they were. You know, like I said, I've been about for a bit and certainly had my ear to the ground. Were they specifically saying that they were getting extra help? I mean, you look at these companies and you think, well, they've got certain credentials by the looks of it. You know, they've obviously got bits and pieces going on. So maybe they did do everything by the by. But then, you know, extra help. But then there is the CTA thing, who in 2020 requested or asked the FSA if there could be a delay in deadlines because of, right, this is a bit interesting because the FSA kind of replied and said that they understood that there was no frustrations or no hang-ups on people obtaining toxicology reports or submitting or filling in novel foods applications. So they basically denied the industry that. And then all of a sudden you got 11 companies with validated products and everyone else is still saying, where are we? I mean, is that what she's referring to, possibly? Like, we didn't have any help whilst kind of being in a small minority that could possibly, like, you know, influence the FSA to the point of saying, like, oh, the industry is good, just leave things lie, you know, whilst we're all looking around and watching it with devastation and lockdowns and whatnot. I mean, you know, it's a thought, might not be the case, but certainly there are bits and pieces there. So, yeah, I mean, there's a bit of uncertainty there. So, Miss McCoy goes on to say, that's why we are where we are today and why other companies who complained and lobbied against the FSA are now complaining that they're not on the list. They didn't adhere to and embrace the guidelines quickly. I'd say there was people embracing guidelines as quickly as they could, but you know, and then of course there is the fact that who was complaining? Well, pretty much 99% of the industry was complaining against the whole thing because it was met with vagueness, and obviously in 2017 full and broad spectrum products were deemed as not null. I mean, what's there not to complain about? There was, of course, only one trade association who was kind of against that, and of course that was the ACI, who they seem like they might have connections, one or two, to GW Pharma, and they, by extension, had 16 lab reports, you know, kind of bring about the requirements for novel foods. So, you know, and they've got small membership in that regard. So, yeah, I'd say that there was a lot more than a few. And of course, in regards to didn't adhere to and embrace the guidelines, like, you know, we mentioned the CTA's refused deadline extension. We've also touched on the vagueness of the guidelines that were, shall we say, constructed on the fly. But then I remember that Miss Coy stated that they hadn't had any extra help. So all good there. She had, we did nothing extraordinary here. We really didn't. We just did what we were supposed to do on time. Spot on. This is from someone who seems to suggest that there was guidance in 2019, and possibly by that form 001 above, seems to have had products validated despite not being available to the public on 13/02/2020. So is, well, yeah, you know, take that as you want. So did purists have products available on or before 13/02/20? If they didn't, what evidence did they supply to the FSA to suggest otherwise? If it kind of shows craziness, you know, what does it really say about the FSA's process of due diligence? Further to this, I mean, you know, the nature of their product, you know, was it in any way able to be part of the CBD amnesty? I mean, obviously I've got to be careful here. The FSA seemed to suggest that synthetic CBD, which is derived in a process I'll mention later, versus plant-derived CBD isolate are identical. But I don't know, I think it's definitely a novel process of a novel product, and it kind of extends out the CBD kind of whole plant era. So, you know, that's something that needs to be discussed. But were they available on that point? So let's have a look at their social media for their answer, or the answer. And first of all, we go to Instagram, that shows purists declaring our site is now live on 18/06/20. That's a bit past deadline. Facebook shows their first post is dated 30/04/20. Bit closer, but still over the mark. LinkedIn has a bit of a funny beast, isn't it? LinkedIn basically says first post was 2 years ago. Whether that's up to 2.5 or you know, flips when I don't know. But yes, not looking 13/02/20 friendly, is it? So yeah, I want to talk about pre-orders, sample sales, right? This will come through in this and all that, because, you know, you've got to think how companies who, if they were not available officially to the public, how are they saying that they are, you know? And if it's like, oh, we had pre-orders, or we sold samples, right? Now, is that truly available to the public? All right, I want to think about that, because is a sample, or at least in some of the senses that I've seen, a finished product if there's no finished product? Because it might be an R&D sample. Is it a finished product sample? That's an interesting one. And then pre-orders, all right? So in that sense, it's normally the retailer who pre-orders, not the individual. So is it someone waiting to sell something that's going to be available to the public, but they've ordered it before, and then that's kind of considered as before the time frame, if you know what I mean? To me, I'll be honest, like, I've worked for a compliance, I've said it before, a compliance focused association or organization, whatever you want to call it. And, I don't need to be able to refer to that so much as logic. I mean, how do you define a product truly available to the public? Like, because I don't think it's pre-orders. And if you sold me a sample of something, I mean, you're only going to have a certain amount of samples. It's not available. So I don't know. That's something that the FSA are going to have to consider beyond this point. Other than me, I think there are a few companies that are trying to rely on that. A few certainly that are awaiting evidence, as well as I think one or two companies in here that I've just about to mention. So anyway, let's move on. Now, before we do get to the other companies, though, I did kind of indicate that I wanted to talk about whole plant or plant derived versus synthetic. All right. Now, I know guidelines have changed at some point. There was some bill that was going through Parliament where it's changing the dynamics of food. And now I can't remember, and it's a little bit of a crazy process sorting this out and bringing up as much evidence as I can without boring the hell out of you. But to cut a long story short, yeah, it was redefining foods that were allowed to be created by genetically modified organisms. All right. And I wonder if those guidelines that I think are passed recently apply to a product that actually didn't have a sensible footing before. Right, now hear me out on this. Right, you can chew a plant, you can extract from a plant, you can isolate from a plant, right? But it's a plant that we know, it's a plant that we lived with, right? However, you get synthetic CBD, right? From my understanding, then, there might be variables on this, but ultimately you get a load of orange skin or something like that, and then you get engineered organisms. Now, to what I've read, engineered streptococcus as well as altered yeast. Sounds almost like a computer game. But then you basically stick that into a vat and you shake it all about, and then you've got synthetic CBD. But then you've got to use what's known as thiocyanide to kill the organisms, as well as hot water to kill the yeast. And then what you're left with is CBD. Is it though? I mean, forgive me for being a bit of a purist here, but is it? And, is it right to compare that to the craziness that comes from 16 lab reports from GW Pharma's pharmaceutical grade isolate? I mean, is it the same? Plant derived, test tube derived? I don't know, but that's something as well, because I question whether they should fit in with the Novel Foods amnesty, not just on the basis of whether their products were available or not, but certainly due to the process that is used to create that product. That's more novel than anything that comes from a plant, let's be honest. So anyway, right, let's move on. Brains Botanicals. This is a bit of an open and shut case. At the end of the day, they had a report go out in nutraingredients.com. on 03/02/22, and it basically refers to their novel validated products being available spring this year. Now, I've had a little look at their social sites. I can't see anything about product launches, you know, or available. They've been about a bit, but nothing. I've been to their website, which you can see here as well, which almost suggests that they're still not available. Well, we're quite beyond the 13/02/20 deadline now, aren't we? So what have they got? Yeah, LinkedIn shows their first post from 3 years ago. What's of interest, and this is another thing that I'll touch on as we go, is they've got another post there 10 months ago, which is when they're saying about their products being validated. No product launches before or after. Also, in the same month, right, on the same page, for the same company, they indicate that they have initiated a clinical trial agreement for CBD to tackle opioid addiction. Let's be honest, that's quite mental. But doesn't it just confuse things a bit? I mean, you know, we as an industry, we've been told to not confuse the lines between foods and medicines. This is one of the companies, in fact, all of these companies pretty much overstep that boundary, like quite blatantly in what they do. And I just kind of remember the good old days. You know, remember the good old days when the MHRA used to go about and kind of say like, yo, interesting claims there, want to prove them? And then you can't, and then they say remove that stuff off your website, or we're going to do stuff, to which you remove that stuff off your website, and you know, you hopefully go past your merry ways, and at least, you know, out of courtesy, send them a Christmas card saying thank you for not doing worse. But we see this. But anyway, I'm digressing. So there is that kind of confusion. But yeah, it does draw an issue between foods and medicines. And but anyway, yeah, at the end of the day, no products available. So how come they've got products validated? So next we go on to Canary. What a fringe, eh? What a fringe. You know, don't get me wrong. I've no doubt that Claudia Winkleman probably knows nothing about all of these bits and pieces. Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe she does know about novel foods guidelines. But at the end of the day, we've got to kind of look at bits and pieces. Now, I'm going to say, I discovered something today on this. It kind of suggests that there was moves to kind of get on the up and up, but unfortunately something seems to have happened. You know, and certainly with everyone else, if you think something has happened, then you know, you've got to face the consequences of what that happening kind of causes. So Canary, if you go to their Twitter page, they were apparently launched on 28/02/20, so that's 15 days past the deadline. Now, if you go online a little bit, you'll see that they were actually kind of founded before, like, but not launched. Like, and certainly their focus again was more medicinal, shall we say, on supplemental. Although from this and the way things are going at the moment, I think that line is easily blurred. But anyway, yes, 28/02/20, that's when they say that they launched. They've also got pretty much an identical post on Instagram. Now, here's the thing. Post below, check it out. Right. 145 weeks ago. All right. Now today is the 27th of the 11th 20, or 1018 days after 130220. Alright, now there's someone indicating there that they've not got their stuff yet, and someone from Canada is saying we don't know what's happening. Alright, however, that's 145 weeks ago. 1018 days works out to 145.43 weeks. So did anyone have their products available beyond that? I don't know. Facebook also confirms the launch on 20/02/20, with some posts beforehand offering, as in the Instagram post above, that products were available for sample, but who knows? There it is. Now, does offering samples, I mean, kind of going up again, like point raised, does offering samples mean that your product is available to the public? I don't think it is, because you can offer samples of anything. It doesn't mean it's going to be ultimately on sale, or at least in that format. You know, to what extent is that sample a sample? Is it a sample of the finished product, or is it a sample of the labeled? You know, it could be anything. It's not the actual product that is ultimately traceable as available to the general public, surely. So, moving on, there's something of interest. Even though they say that their website was launched on 28/02/20, they've got a post from the 13th/02/20. And it's actually the CBD pre-review report by the World Health Organization. I just think that's a bit interesting, you know, because if you're launching online on a day, that's there, you know, surely you'd stick something about the FSA's big decision on that day that certainly has more influence, more impact on the industry that you're jumping into. It's not something that, I mean, it's strange, but you know, the screenshots are there, the links are there. You know, certainly it doesn't really have that much of a bearing on ultimately whether or not they had products available on the right points. But I just find that a bit weird. So, and then of course, the other bit of weirdness, because there is a bit of a gap, nearly 2 years in fact, because apparently the second entry in their journal, where they got bits and pieces, blogs and whatnot, is dated 08/02/2020. Like nearly 2 years past the deadline, and you got to think, well, hold on, if you've been about, where's the content from that before? I mean, you're everywhere. You're getting into Morrison's, you're getting, you know, where's that content gone? I don't know. Certainly an interesting question, and yes, the second blog on that is in regards to what is CBD isolate. So, you know, just a interesting thing. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, social says you launched, online launched, so you'd assume, unless you had a shop somewhere, that you probably have like bits and pieces online about, you know, saying, oh, this is us, like, you know, that would be from the point that your products are available from. Sensible thought? I don't know. Maybe it's just me. So yeah, moving on to Health in Harmony. Another open and shut case, in my opinion. The first blog is dated 11/08/21. There's no products on sale, I believe, on or before 130220. Now, apart from their first blog, their first post on their only social media outlet, which is Instagram, is CBD related post. It's for one of their validated products, and it's dated 03/09/2022. There's no other post before that. No indicator of a focus on CBD. Every other product with the hashtags is something different. There's no focus on there. So it's just like, boom, out of the blue. So is it possible that, before that, the products weren't even available in the US on 130220, let alone in the UK? Because you go by social media, like, if the posts aren't there to kind of verify, why aren't the posts there? Are posts being removed? So yeah, when was that product available? Yeah, I don't think it was in the UK. I think it's only recently come out in the US. There's no trumpeting, no fanfare, not anything I can see. So why is it there? And of course, then you got Vesisorb. Now, the other two companies above, they're kind of all related. Vesisorb. So, their product information pack for their only product is dated April 2021. Their only product. It's a bit easy, really, isn't it? Again, showing that they had no product available on the right deadline in the UK, probably let alone in the US. And is an interesting thing for you. When you validate it, right, it means that the FSA have accepted every single bit of information that you have provided as being correct and in place for your product to then work towards authorization. That's what validation is. You've provided all the information, you get that gold star. Now it's passed on to the people who've got slightly bigger brains than mere mortals. Okay, so the application for Vesisorb was updated on 21/09/22. Interesting. Forgive me, I haven't checked into the other validated products to see if any of those have been updated as well, but I find it interesting that, how is it updated? Surely what you got there upon the point of validation is what you got there, right? Or am I missing something? Maybe that's another point to ponder. But yeah, it's been updated over a year past not over a year, but since it's been validated. So then we got Geocan. Now, here's an interesting thing because they are tied into applications with Canare, Vesisorb, and just so I don't get this confused with the next one, Health in Harmony. So it kind of throws a bit of a question mark over their entire involvement if those products are proven, or if any of them, why are you supporting companies that kind of don't fit regulatory requirements, shall we say? Yeah. Because these aren't small companies. Like, at the end of the day, they would have known exactly what the game was. I mean, not like Miss McCoy above, who seems to have had a crystal ball and knew what was going on in 2019. Not like that at all. Unless, of course, there was some kind of secret club in the background, which, let's be honest, it could be believable. Could be. But yeah, so Geocan, yeah. Question marks there again. So then we're moving away from them. We've got Health and Happiness UK, Bod Healthcare. Now, this is another interesting company because they suggest the potential of products, but they don't actually offer the potential for you to buy their products until 25/02/20. Right, that's on Instagram, and you know, you obviously, if you go onto these pages to kind of verify what I'm saying, do check the other posts, check the wording, notice the shift, and if there's no big absolute blaring we've launched post this product, then question. So yeah, all of their posts before 09/10/20 on Facebook have been deleted. I did draw attention to one of their posts before on there, but I didn't get a screenshot on it, so I wonder if it might just be them cleaning up shop, or just avoiding stuff that they feel is being focused on to their detriment. The link below shows that their capsules just landed on 10/04/20. Just landed. It's my jazz hands, by the way. There's a screenshot. So, what are we supposed to think with all of these? You know, I'm not the only person who's kind of questioned all of this. You know, and I'm not the only person who's brought this information to the FSA. I mean, there are other bits and pieces in this that I could add, but obviously I've got to be conscious of how long this is. So obviously being conscious of how long this is, or getting, I'll stop waffling from here. We've got one company left to go, and that's 4MP. Now, CBDX is one of their trumpeted products. Apparently it was available on pre-order up until March this year. I mean, say apparently, got the screenshots. So, yeah, on Facebook, it's shown as now in stock on 28/04/21. This one now shows CBDX was only available on pre-order on 17/07/21. Now, I've been quite open with this information, right? And no one has kind of really questioned me. But I've noticed when I've been going over these companies, trying to find bits and pieces that is gone or whatnot. And I think this kind of verifies that, because one of the products that I did highlight was the capsules from 4MP. There's a post, or there was a post on Facebook, which I have a screenshot for, as you can see, and the original address. And if you click through it, you'll see that it's no longer there. But it was dated 26/08/20, and of course, interesting picture there. See the sample box? See what I was getting with above? Like, but sample box and new product development. 22/08/20. That's past the deadline. Another interesting thing is that they were created or incorporated 1 month before the Novel Foods deadline, or the 13/02/20 deadline. So yeah, that's just one of those curios, but certainly there's other bits and pieces there that are a little bit more than curios. So, considering the FSA were adamant that products need to be available to the public on or before 13/02/20, right? I feel like I've got two initial questions. That's not Sprocket, by the way. That's not the director for security and treats. That is an imposter. My apologies, but I'll try and work through there. I agree. So, yes, ultimately, 2 questions. All right. Did the companies above provide evidence to show their products were available on or before 13/02/20? All right. If they did, then the evidence that I found online suggests otherwise. Now, I have to play the game sensibly here. I'm going to say suggests, because there might be an honest reason why every single, post from 4MP on LinkedIn that involves a product associated with novel foods is altered. There might be genuine reasons why, above Health and Harmony have taken every post down from late December 2020. There might be genuine reasons on these, and I would invite every single company who no doubt are going to find out about this, like, to comment, because at the end of the day, if you guys have commented on this, right, there wouldn't be all this industry uncertainty, and you wouldn't get some upstart like me saying, hold on, and let's be honest, demanding to be heard. I mean, if you guys have heard what's going on, and you've got evidence to show that these uncertainties are unfounded, please, right, share them, because at the end of the day, when I did this initial investigation, every validated product had a potential question mark over it. That's shocking. I'd like to think that there was at least one product on there that was all good, wasn't tied in with craziness. But yeah, please do let me, and ultimately the people that I share that information with, know. The second question is, if they did supply information, why has the FSA not done basic checks to confirm whether these companies were telling the truth? Now, this is a bit of an interesting one, because obviously there's over 12,000 products. How do you verify over 12,000 products? Well, if you can't do that, what's the point in novel foods? I mean, anyone can pull a blinder. I mean, you shouldn't, because lying to the regulatory authorities about anything, let alone something that we ultimately consume, I mean, that's a bit naughty. But, there is that. Equally, yeah, it's novel foods. It's about food safety, allegedly. So you would like to think that there would be absolute due diligence when it comes to verifying these potential products, whether it's checking on companies' house, checking their social media posts, checking their first blog release. All these bits and pieces have an indicator, and the thing is, they're not hard to do. I mean, I did them, and other people have done it. This information here, it's freely available, and the thing is that it's also been presented to the FSA, right, by me in a couple of times, in a couple of different formats, articles, and basically a refined document of which this is a singular part of, but it's been submitted. And this information here suggests the potential for someone either lying to the FSA or someone in the FSA allowing information passed without a level of due diligence. So where are we on that? Because I mean, I don't represent the whole industry, obviously. Who does? But I see a lot of the industry saying, what the hell? Quite easily. So that information has been provided and it's been dismissed. Why would it be dismissed? And not just once either, and not just once from me. So there is a real uncertainty on that. Now I'm going to wrap this up, but just to reaffirm, I have no products on sale, but I am able to raise this complaint as an agency worker within the hemp and CBD industry. No one has asked me to make this complaint, which includes other sections which we'll be coming up to. And equally, very few of, I have had a little bit of help, but very few have given me true actual direction. Now, even though that's the case, these are genuine industry concerns, or at least this one section here represents a big industry concern, right? And it kind of needs to be addressed at the end of the day, because if you're telling companies that I have a list here and every single product on this list was available on or before that point, and yet you can show quite easily that there's obviously been a mistake, but more than once, twice, thrice, however else you go up past there. So there is an issue, and it needs to be addressed for the fairness of the industry. And that's why I'm doing these videos, right? It's fairness. If anyone's known me over time, they've known that basically I have been in this industry to try and at least be a fair voice. If these companies did not have a product before that point, that is not fair. That is an unfair market advantage, either awarded to them because they've lied and it's not being checked, or it's not being checked, or just blindly accepted. So yeah, that's this one. Have a great